HAYLA recently released her debut album, DUSK, and I want to give you my thoughts on it, song by song. The first song on the album, Only I, sets the tone very well for how the album will go. It's very atmospheric in the break and dark. The songwriting in Only I isn't the best on the album in my opinion, but it fits the theme. The drop has consistent energy and also sets the tone well for the album. It's very short, however, the drop, and could use more expansion. I also feel that there was a conflicting rhythm between the vocals and everything else in the drop. The second break is very similar, which leaves to some confusion to my ears on what's actually the drop and what's the second break. The second build-up is very energetic, more so than many of the songs on some of the albums, and even some of the drops on the album. The second drop is longer, more thought out, and the rhythms fit together a bit better. The second song on the album, Alone, has good songwriting. I really enjoy the vocoder in the build-ups, but sometimes it's hard to understand the lyrics. The drop is very energetic, and the bass patch keeps a lot of energy. It's a bit simple, but it gets the job done. The vocal ad-libs in the drop fit well as the second break's great vocals. The song structure is interesting, but more could be done in the arrangement. The bass patch, while being high energy, could use more variation in the drops. In the second drop, there's an arp that I latch onto that gives a true focus, which the first drop didn't really have. Free Fall has a great vibe on the lyrics. I can easily understand them and they fit the track. The break seems really built around the vocals. The build uses vocals as a transition, a nice touch, and remains quite washed out compared to the other parts of the song. This song has one of my favorite drops on the album. I really like the length of the drop, the lead, and the stellar incorporation of the vocals. The second break is very rhythmic while still having a significant change in energy. The second build with the respace is great. I love the sound design and the ideas behind it. I wish more of the songs on the album had this style of build. When listening on headphones, it could use a little more bass in the second drop. I wish it lasted longer, as the second drop ended very abruptly and quickly. The next song, Visions of You, had great bass incorporation. It's a higher energy break than much of the album, with the chords slowly coming in. All the rhythms work well and to flow into the build-up. The build-up has good lyrics, and I like the pluck that leads into a lead in the drop. The drop is very chill, it's sort of ambient and quite vibey. I do like the lead, but it doesn't have a ton there. It doesn't wow me. The second break feels like it's just the drop without the lead, and the bass is slightly higher. The ambient elements and the drums are very similar between the first drop and the second break. The second build-up has a great fake out, which adds extra flavor to the song structure, which I enjoy. The real build-up isn't great though, and doesn't build enough tension. The second drop feels very similar to the first drop. The pads add an extra element in the second drop, but are nothing special. Loneliest Around You feels more like an interlude than a true song on the album, due to a lack of what feels like a drop. The whole song feels like a break with very similar but slightly varying levels of energy, with nothing that truly stands out. There is a hook, but nothing stands out, not even a build-up or a drop. It's very repetitive, not one of my favorite songs on the album. Fall Again is the best song on the album in my opinion. I scored it a 9.3. The lyrics in the break, as well as the rhythm and the atmosphere, work very well together. When the bass comes in for the build-up, the vocals get really good. It's one of the most catchy songs in my opinion on the album as well. I really like how the lead is in the drop, with the bass rhythms and the percussion. My only qualm with the first drop is how short it is, even though the second break is relatively similar. The second break has much of the bass, percussion, and chord stabs that the drop has, all working well with the catchy vocals. The vocals fit in the break and build-up. The drops are short, and the song structure could be expanded on a bit more, but it's all great. I love the vocals, and I want to hear more of the drop in the future. I really loved Treading Water as well. The vocals are probably the most emotional on the entire album. The break is very vibey, and the chord progression and patchwork is amazing, along with the controlled low end. The higher speed spoken word section is quite good too. The build up with the hook is vibey, but it washes out too much. The drop is chill, I love the sound effects, and it generally fits very well. It's a longer drop with the stabs working out well. The vocals are very similar between both breaks, but they are super catchy. The second drop with the vocals is an amazing drop. I like all this ear candy and the vocals. One thing I don't like, however, is how long the outro ends up being. Unfold needs work on the break. The best part is where the piano comes in the entire track. It's not very energetic and the vocals are hard to understand sometimes, while being super airy. The drop is very chill and percussive, but it doesn't stand out. It's way too light and the second break feels heavier. The song structure of Unfold, as well as much of the album, is very basic, and it could use more arrangement. The very empty build-up adds some tension, but that's not enough for the song to be good, in my opinion. The second drop's lead gives me something to latch onto, but it's so detuned that it's unpleasant for me to listen to other than when it gets to its brightest. The gated vocals work, but the lead stands out, and not in a good way. Embers has one of the best vocals on the album. The high energy break, with all of the atmosphere and reverb swells, works well. The build-up is catchy and builds tension. The drop is one of my favorites. I love the lead and the percussion. The melody is catchy and rhythmic. The second break has different lyrics, and I really appreciate that, as many of the other songs had very similar lyrics in both breaks. The build-up is super airy and very enjoyable. It's long, but it brings so much more tension than most other build-ups in this album. The second drop has really nice rhythmic basses. I don't like how loud the hats are in the drop, but almost everything else is very good. The title track of this album, Dusk, is another song that feels like an interlude. It goes quickly, but has no true lyrics and doesn't have a build or a drop. I like the ear candy and the sound effects, but it's not a true EDM song. The string swells are nice, and the hum melody adds a lot of atmosphere. It's a pretty repetitive track overall, though. HAYLA's debut album, Dusk, had its highs and lows, with generally good vocals. The arrangement of these songs stayed very similar throughout, which led to some fatigue over time. The build-ups generally were washed out, and the second breaks were very similar to the first drops as a whole. Some songs needed some more energy, and some songs brought the right amount of energy. Free Fall, Fall Again, and Treading Water were the highlights of the album, with their airy, vibey vocals that scratched an itch in my brain. There were two songs that felt more like interludes, Dusk and Loneliest Around You. Both didn't have much energy and were highly repetitive. Overall, I do like the album's idea, its sound design, and its consistency, but I would have liked a little bit more energy, a bit more stylistic changes in the sound design, and even longer drops.